Good day everyone and welcome to the Age of Antiquity Civ tier list for patch 1.3.0. It feels like a lifetime ago that we did one of these because the last one was on patch 1.2.2 and the game has completely changed since then, so let's get straight into it. So first up we have Assyria, who again a lot of people would consider this to be the new strongest Civ in Antiquity. And why is that? Well, it was pretty obvious to be honest from the first time I looked at this Civ way back in the day. Patch 1.2.3, just how strong this Civ was. So why is that? Let's get into it. So their ability, Treasures of Nineveh. They gain a tech whenever you capture a settlement for the first time. Now already this is really quite good. So note that this can be masteries, which aren't as valuable, but this can be technologies. And once you've completed the entire tech tree, this is when this ability starts to really shine. Now, completing the entire tech tree might sound like a big ask, but for Assyria, it's really not. They've got some insane science generation that we'll get to a bit later with their building, but obviously this ability helps as well. Once you complete the tech tree and all the masteries, every time you capture a settlement, you can get a future tech. This will, every single settlement you take gets you another future tech, which can be, you know, tens of thousands of science saved. Now those future techs, they go up exponentially in cost, but this doesn't care. This ability does not care how much the tech costs. It just gives you one every single time. It's completely ridiculous. It helps you get to that point, and then once you get to that point, it absolutely pops off. I think this is just it's an insanely good ability. And fortunately for them, they are really good at taking settlements, which we'll also get to, but you can see here, they've got some insane units. Now, the techs, they do research. They don't get any codices from their tech tree. So if we have a look at the tech tree, Assyria's looks slightly different to everyone else's. Writing mastery, for example, doesn't give a codex. None of the tech masteries that you would expect to give a codex. Mathematics mastery famously doesn't exist. It kind of does. It's a bit bugged, but anyway, for all intents and purposes, you do not get anything. So there's no mathematics mastery. So yeah, Assyria, that's meant to be the sort of downside for this, but they've got a way around it. So one of their civics in here, which we'll quickly go to, it's the second civic in their tree. And once you research it, every time you take a settlement, you not only get a free tech, but you get a codex as well. And that's going to become your main way of getting codices throughout the game. Now they do also get 3 codices in their civic tree. So every time you research one of their masteries, you also get a codex as well. That's 3 you get for free, but otherwise it's going to be up to you to take over settlements to complete the science legacy path and get those codices. Note that you do have to, get to the civic first to get to that point. So I'd usually recommend hold off on the conquest until you, at the very least, get to that second civic, and then you can start getting those codices up as well. Just keep that in mind. And the final ability is 30% reduction towards Der Shuriken. It's an okay wonder. It's not great. It's very defensive, which is sort of out of step for what Assyria wants to be doing, which is very, very offensive. So, you can build it if you want, but it's nothing really worth going out of your way for. Down to their unit, and we have the Magaru, and this is a unique cavalry unit. It has additional movement, which brings up to 4. It has 4 movement, which is already insane. It's very strong as a cavalry unit by default, and it can move after attacking, which is an insanely good ability in Civ 7 in particular. What this means is that if you have a commander here, and obviously you can have commanders if you go on a war, and let's say you can, this discovery here is the only tile, it's a city center, and you can only reach the city center from, this one tile. Usually this would be really hard to take because, you can only attack with 1 unit at a time. With Assyria, you can pack your commander, say your commander's here, you can unpack, and this is once you get the assault promotion, all right? But you should be getting the assault promotion, all right? The one that lets you move after you unpack from a commander. You can unpack, hit the city center, or whatever it is, and repack into the commander. Go to another unit, unpack, attack, repack. It's insane. The ability to move after attacking in Civ 7 is completely ridiculous. It just means that you can sort of attack with impunity. They can't really fight back. Again, because of how much movement these guys have as well. If these were the city centers, and I know that they wouldn't be, but you could attack from Nineveh. Unpack here, go in, attack, come back, repack, and there's nothing they can do. It's absolutely insane. Magaru is an insane unit. It's really, like, all these effects are ridiculous. And the fact that it has 4 movement, which is faster than a packed commander by default, is insane. Now, you want to be moving these guys across roads where you can because they still get stuck in vegetation and that sort of thing, but these are insane. These are going to be your main driving force, and what you're going to be rushing in the tech tree most likely, because the tech tree is a little bit more low value for you as Assyria, with the lack of masteries. You can go straight for the wheel, and I would recommend just about every single game, go straight for the wheel. You might want to stop by for riding just to sort of speed up that point, so you can go pottery into riding and then down to the wheel. I think that's probably fair as well. But either way, once you get the wheel, you're online. That's when Assyria is absolutely online. Moving down to their army commander, a fantastic unit to have as a unique unit if you're a war civ, obviously. And this is a good one. The Tatanu gives infantry and cavalry units within the command radius +5 combat strength against fortified districts. This is great. I mean, again, the main thing you want to be doing as Assyria is taking those city centers, those fortified districts in most cases once the ally gets walls. This just helps you with that. It's nothing fancy, but it is strong. So moving on. Assyria gets a unique quarter, which is always a good sign in terms of a civ being good. It gives them +2 production for each great work on display in this settlement, so that's codices, but keep in mind, this is age agnostic, so this continues to help you throughout the ages. In exploration, this means relics. In the modern age, this would mean artifacts, not that you probably really care at that point, but still, this helps you, particularly in exploration, still quite a bit. So it's a really, really powerful effect. And it doesn't stop there. The hits just keep coming for Assyria. They have the Citadel. It's a unique production and a fortification building. It gives +3 production as a base and +2 happiness if placed on flat terrain, +1 production adjacency for wonders, and that's the only adjacency they get. However, it is also a fortified district, so this counts as, essentially a walled district that has to be captured to take the settlement. A nice little buff, again, very defensive. It helps you just keep those settlements that you already have. It's really, really good. And production buildings are fantastic. This is an ageless production building, even better. And down to the Royal Library, their last building, possibly one of the strongest buildings in the game. Science is the yield you want to be getting, particularly as a war civ, but in general, science is really, really important in Civ 7. This gives you a third science building you can build in your cities, so, your library, your second tier science building that I can't recall, and you can get the Royal Library as well. So what does it do? +3 science as a base, 2 codex slots, all good so far. But it gets +1 science adjacency for rivers and wonders, of course. But rivers, this is minor and major, so minor and navigable. Insane. So, right here, for example, that's a +6 base building. Ageless science. I'm saying a lot of words here, but this is a great way for you a great tile for you to stack specialists on. All those specialists that you put on here are going to stay with you for the rest of the game. It's insane. The Royal Library is absolutely ridiculous as a building. It's so easy to get this thing, stacked up in terms of adjacency. I can see another river down here. It's going to be, at least a +6 again. It's so easy. Rivers are everywhere in Civ 7, and they tend to, bend around like this. They make really good spots for Royal Libraries just naturally. So, insane. Everything on this page is insane. Assyria has no bad abilities so far. So let's go over to the civics. So the civic tree is quite linear. It reminds me a lot of Persia, but in many ways, to be honest, Assyria is like Persia, but they got it right this time. Let's be real. So you get a +1 settlement limit right off the bat, which is a great start for their civic tree. This is also where you get your citadel, which is amazing. And you get an effect here that the capital receives 2 culture for each tech mastery, which is kind of meant to make up for the fact that instead of getting a codex for +2 science for each tech mastery, or at least some of them, you get +2 culture instead. So this means there is still a reason as Assyria to go for those tech masteries. In a way, I feel this is making up for what's meant to be a weakness, like a big drawback for the Civ, but it actually isn't much of a drawback because you still get the culture anyway. Now, it's a small amount of culture, but it's still there. And the thing is, you're going to be getting a ton of these masteries anyway, sort of against your will, probably because of the free tech you get when you capture a settlement. So keep that in mind. And you get to Shuriken here, which is fair enough. You unlock it pretty early, but again, it's not amazing. Now, keep in mind, this did get a new effect recently for the +1 science, but it's only in this settlement, which is a bit average, really. If this was Empire-wide, I think this wonder would be actually pretty decent and would kind of synergize quite well. Now, again, keep in mind as well that fortifications, that counts for your citadel. So your citadel would get +1 science from Shuriken, for example. All things to keep in mind. Down to the mastery. Again, more fortification synergy here. So this is one of the reasons why Assyria is also pretty decent into the future ages.
+1 science on fortification buildings. This synergizes ludicrously well with the Ming Empire in the Exploration Age. Their Great Walls count as fortification buildings, so it's +1 science on every single Great Wall. Really, really good. But again, the only synergy you get in the Antiquity Age for this is with your citadels and your regular ancient walls. This mastery also gives you +5 combat strength for all military units when defending against ranged units. This is insane. This is just, if the enemy is building ranged units, every single one without condition, doesn't have to be within a commander at all, just across the board, all of your units take, have +5 combat strength against ranged units. That's insane. And you get your codex here too. Moving on to their second civic, so this is where you get your royal library and you unlock your commanders here as well, which is quite interesting that you don't have to actually go through discipline to get a commander here, which is pretty interesting, although you probably still want to go for discipline anyway. What it does mean though is that you can hard build your first commander and then unlock discipline, and that'll give you a second army commander for free. And that second army commander would usually be kind of prohibitively expensive for the early game, but doing it this way means you can produce the really cheap one yourself and then get the freebie from discipline. It's actually quite strong. Having 2 commanders is really good this early, so consider that. So again, here's where you get your royal library. Absolutely yoked building, as I've talked about before. It's ridiculous. And this is where you get that, quite important ability to gain a codex whenever you capture a settlement for the first time. So to be honest, most games I would be rushing straight for these 2 civics. You can go, rush the wheel and rush these 2 civics, and you're off to a fantastic start as Assyria. Down to the mastery here, plus 25% production towards constructing buildings and wonders with a great work slot. So that is your royal libraries, keep that in mind. But that's also your regular libraries and your academies. So overall, it's a pretty decent sort of production boost. You get your free codex here as well, and +2 happiness on science buildings as a default effect. You don't have to slot this in. It's kind of weak, but it's free happiness, and it helps the cities that you conquer remain happy. So it's not bad. It's kind of thematic for them. Last civic here, we get +1 settlement limit again, so it's a +2 settlement limit civ, and +5 combat strength to Magaru if they are in a command radius. So again, fantastic unit. Your Magaru are getting another +5 combat strength here from being within the commander, and you probably have 2 of them as well, and they're getting +5 from your unique commander that already gives +5 towards fortified districts. That's +10 against districts. Insane, absolutely insane. You'll find that cities just melt against these things. They are really, really good. I can't stress it enough. And down to the mastery, +20% science in cities not founded by you. Again, you're going to have a lot of cities that aren't founded by you, so it's better than you think, but this effect goes away in the next age. Keep that in mind for all Civ VII effects that say, like cities not founded by you. That's a per age effect. So when the new age rolls around, those are now considered your cities, even if you took them last age. Keep that in mind. +3 food and production in settlements not founded by you. This is okay. Again, you're going to have a lot of settlements that are like that, but it kind of comes pretty late in the tree. I think overall, this mastery is easily skippable, all things considered. Definitely not essential to sort of a serious game plan, but it can be nice if you want that extra science and food and production, but it's, again, not essential. So that's Assyria. They are really, really insane. I would probably pit them as the strongest civ in Antiquity. Now, the one caveat to this is that they take a little bit to get going. Prior to you getting to the wheel, they don't actually have that much going for them. And prior to them getting to their second civic here, where you get the codex and you unlock your commander, they don't actually do a whole lot. But if you can survive the early game, the extreme early game here, to get to that point where you have your cavalry, your commanders, you are absolutely unstoppable. And I would say even a civ like Mississippi, who's kind of like the ultimate defensive civ, they're good on offense too, but Mississippi with their burning arrows, even the burning arrows I would say can't stop, Magaru and Assyria. They're just completely ridiculous. So yeah, I would really have no choice here. I think Assyria undoubtedly deserves their spot up in S tier. They are completely insane. They set you up quite well for the rest of the game, just by virtue of you having probably taken over so much of your neighbor's land. You probably have a ton of space to yourself. You have highly leveled commanders. They are really, really fantastic, and they're also one of the most fun civs they've added to the game, although a lot of that is on account of just how satisfying it is to roll through your enemy's land, and it's just like a hot knife through butter, to be honest. There's very little people can do about it once you get rolling, so that's Assyria. Next up we have Silla, who is a really fun civ. I think overall they've done a really great job with all the Antiquity Age civs they've added. They all are very unique and have very different playstyles. Silla is, well, we'll get to it, but they're all about allies and trading. To start off, they get +1 culture on resources. So this is resources that you would improve. The description's a bit vague here, but you can see, you know, the flax here gets +1 culture. The clay up here is on +2. The original +1's from the tundra. Look, overall, it's an okay bonus. It kicks in really early because you'll be improving resources really early on. And +1 culture, you know, this early is, you know, potentially at the start of the game, a 10% increase to your culture. But overall, it's not amazing. It's just kind of a nice to have. The other effect is 30% production towards Amelia Bell. Amelia Bell's a pretty good wonder. It gives you a diplomatic point, gives you a unique effect that was recently buffed, so I guess we'll have a look at it here. Base of +2 influence, and the ginseng agreement that gives food to both leader cities. This used to just be your capital only, but now it's all cities, so it's slightly better than it was before. It's kind of like the equivalent of the farmers market, but for cities. Yeah, a pretty decent wonder, so they got that going for them, and they can get it pretty easily. Down to their unique unit here, it's the Hwarung, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that awfully. It's a unique range unit, and it's essentially a horse archer, so +1 movement and 3 bombard strength, but it counts as a cavalry unit as well as a range unit. It's a pretty good unit. You don't really want to be fighting too much as Silla, but this is good for fending off barbarians. You can move around your land a bit quicker to sort of get to where it needs to be. But overall, it's not really that useful. Again, if you're fighting someone as Silla, something's gone probably pretty wrong. Particularly with the bombard strength, taking cities really isn't your wheelhouse, but it's there as an option, so that's something you can do. They also get a unique merchant. Now, it's a unique merchant. Now, typically these would be awful, so we'd be going straight to, garbage tier for this unit in particular. When you create a trade route, gain +5 gold for the current relationship level with the leader. This is on standard speed, minimum 5 gold. Now, when I first saw this, I thought this meant that it was 5 gold, if they were neutral. You'd get 10 gold if they were friendly, or 15 gold if they were, helpful, the highest tier. What this actually is it's for every single relationship point. So it's 30 relationship points to get to friendly and 60 to get to helpful, where you can form an alliance. What this means is that if you're in an alliance with someone and you go up to 90 relationship points, for example, that's 450 gold every time you do a trade route with that person. It's actually a lot of gold. So if your typical relationship with, your neighbors around you, maybe, you got a few issues with borders touching, settlements nearby, that sort of thing. Maybe you're sitting at around 30 to 40 relationship with them. That's still 150 to 200 gold every time you make a trade route. That's like Xerxes, Green Xerxes' ability, basically. This gives you a ton of gold. It's way better than I expected when I first read it, because of the way it actually works. It's really insane. I think they should probably change this from relationship level to relationship points to make it a bit clearer. But it's a really good unit, and it's probably the only good merchant in the game, so there you go. Silla gets a unique quarter as well. Again, always fun. All the new civs have unique quarters, and I'm glad because they are so much fun to play with. If you don't have a unique quarter, you need something else really good to make up for it. Their unique quarter gives +1 gold for every resource assigned to the city. Now this effect, it's not great, realistically. If you're playing someone like Amina that, really likes resources, that sort of stacks on top of each other, but really it's kind of a minor effect. If your average city maybe has, 5 or 6 resources, your capital has, 7, 8, 9, it's not that much gold overall, but it's still fun, and they get these great unique buildings as well. The lecture hall, +3 culture and +1 culture for wonders adjacency, and +1 resource capacity in the settlement if placed on rough terrain. So a pretty decent culture building, nothing too sort of special here. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any good adjacencies, it's just wonders, which is sort of the default. But you do get that resource capacity if you place on rough, so make sure to do that. But the real winner here is the pagoda. It's a unique happiness building, +3 happiness, and it gives +1 influence adjacency for natural wonders, mountains, and wonders. So it's a very rare building that has an influence adjacency. Now, to be clear, influence has long since been sort of the most valuable resource in the game because it was quite hard to get, and because city-states were so broken. Now, influence isn't what it once was, alright? So, influence is still really good, but to be honest, you can end a game with a lot of influence and nothing to do with it. It's not as valuable as it once was. Still, the pagoda you can get up quite early to get a ton of influence going with only just one. It's just the one building, but you know, find a good mountain spot for it, and it can really pay off quite fast. Now, the happiness isn't great, but I do think overall these are some pretty solid buildings that you do want to put the effort into building. So far, Silla doesn't seem that strong, but when we get to their civics, this is when things get quite interesting. And luckily, their civic tree is reasonably flexible compared to a lot of other civs, which is always a good sign. When you form an alliance, both leaders receive a free trade route from the other leader's capital. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm actually reading this for the first time, doing it live here. It says, regardless of range. Now, as far as I know, this was actually changed in the most recent patch. 1.3.0 referred to this as a bug, actually, and allegedly fixed it. To be honest, I'm looking at this, I couldn't tell you if this is even true anymore. Okay, so I went ahead and just played forward until I could befriend Napoleon. Seems like there's more barbarians than people in this game, but that's fine, ignore that. So if we form an alliance here, we are definitely out of range. And okay, so I have no idea what the 1.3.0 patch did. It looks like this is very much still working the way it's intended to, which I'm happy about because I thought it was a ridiculous change. But yeah, this is still forming to the capital. It's well over 10 tiles, looks like about 15 to 20. So that's a win. That's a really big win, actually, that this still works as it should. It's a really, really good ability. Getting a free trade route to people's capital, which is, you know, usually their best city, regardless of trade route range, regardless of actually having a merchant, it just builds it automatically, is really strong. So that I'm glad that's still in the game. That's actually made me very happy. I'm glad to have confirmed that. They have a tradition here, Byopseong, +2 happiness on resources in towns with a happiness building. Now, Byopseong might look pretty trash at first, but it's actually not too bad when it comes to, if you go way over the settlement limit, which I think is actually not a bad idea these days, pretty achievable. This can help you just keep all those towns really happy. It's not that hard to get a happiness building up, so that can be an altar, for example, in Antiquity. Again, exploration is probably where you are going massively over the settlement cap, and you have to worry about the crisis, you know, claiming some of those cities back, giving them to your neighbors. So I think Byopseong's actually not too bad. Happiness generally is pretty trash, but this is just a really easy way to make sure all of your towns stay happy and counteract that -35 penalty potentially from the settlement limit. So it's not as bad as you might think. Down to the mastery here, you get both of your buildings at once, which is quite nice. But the only other effect here is that when you defeat an enemy unit with a Huarang, you gain culture equal to 20% of the defeated unit's combat strength. This is terrible. Again, really hard for this to sort of pay itself off. Now we're on like ridiculous online speed here, so it looks pretty cheap, but overall this effect kind of sucks. But you're kind of forced to go for this mastery because you want your buildings, so you got to get it. Not much else to say here. The buildings are good, so take it when you can. Again, there are other civics here. This is quite interesting, really. The top one here, Seonggol, +1 science for each imported resource, and you're going to be having quite a lot of those with all your trade routes to allies. And you also get your merchant here. Now, this is quite an interesting way to actually subvert going through Code of Laws. Quite similar to Assyria, I guess. Code of Laws gives you a free merchant and unlocks them here. But it's, you know, you don't really generally... Code of Laws is kind of annoying to get to because you probably want to go either top or bottom of the civic tree to get these settlement limit increases, and there's some pretty decent wonders here too, depending on whether you're going, you know, more chill or more aggro here. Chiller lets you get your unique merchant on the second civic here. It's really, really fast. You don't have to go through Code of Laws, through these two, and it's reasonably cheap by comparison. So a really sort of nice way to get them trading earlier, and the sooner you can trade, the sooner you can make allies. It's +10 relationship for every trade route you send to someone, so it's a really, really good way to get allies quickly. So yeah, a really solid civic here just because of the speed at which it lets you get merchants out. Really good. Strategic allies. Now this one is a bit confusing, but quite strong actually. Stronger than it kind of seems, specifically for Silla. All trade routes between you and your allies grant food and production equal to the route's trade income. So what does this mean? What is trade income? I don't blame you for not knowing. The game does not explain this at all, really. So what this means, and I appreciate the numbers here are wrong, it's just the policy preview card being weird, but this means that I should be getting +4 food and +4 production in my capital, because that's where the trade route went from and to. It's a bit confusing. I've not explained it too well. This could be its own video, to be honest, looking at trade routes in Civ 7. And the UI doesn't do you any favors, but essentially for every resource you get from an ally's trade route, you're going to get +2 gold, +2 food, and +2 production in that city that it connects to. It's actually pretty strong. It's just really confusing the way it works, and you can't really control where the food or production goes to that well, because it's kind of just going to go to the closest city. Now, in this case, it'll be our capitals because of that automatic one we got here from this one. But yeah, strategic allies is actually pretty good. You'll be seeing some pretty nasty numbers that almost look like Civ 6 trade routes. I kind of wish there was more of an incentive, like in Chilla's abilities somewhere, for people to trade with you more. Right now, the AI doesn't get anything extra from trading with you. It just helps you a lot as Silla, but not them. So I kind of wish there was a way to incentivize that. So, maybe strategic allies also said, additionally, trade route income is increased by 50%. I think that would be a nice way to sort of encourage more people to trade with you. But yeah, a really sort of confusing civic if you don't really know how it works, but it's quite strong. Look at the numbers and plug it in when you can. It's also where you get Amelia Bell, which we've discussed, and down here the mastery, just simply it's trade culture for a social policy slot, which can be pretty good. Because Silla has some pretty decent social policies you might want to plug in. The last one here, +1 resource capacity in towns, not great. You're probably not filling up on resources that fast to really require this, but if you are, then go ahead and grab this. That's probably a fair bit of resource capacity, so there you go. And +1 gold and +1 influence on resources assigned to trade outpost or factory towns. Now, trade outposts are really good on Silla. You probably want a fair few of them, but this is still really quite niche. And overall, if it's a town, it's not going to have that much resource capacity anyway. Like, we're looking at, I know you just got +1 from this civic specifically, but still, you're not going to have much, 2 most likely. So it's going to be a pretty minor amount of golden influence. Now, golden influence is pretty good, but still, it's a very minor effect. And to be honest, past Antiquity, this becomes irrelevant quite quickly. So not a very good tradition there. And the last one here, just straight up, +5 land trade route range to all settlements. So this is basically just like having one extra trade outpost in your empire. It's very helpful. So I'd unlock it when you can. If you start to reach that point where you're running out of trade routes in range, grab this. It always extends it by probably a lot further than you think, because who actually knows how trade route range works in Civ 7? Nobody does. So that is Silla. They are a really interesting Civ. And I think their power level can vary massively depending on your neighbors. You probably want neighbors that are reasonably close to being trade route range, but not so close that settling near them will, annoy them and keep decreasing your relationship. You really want to get into that threshold where they're your ally. In Civ 7, once someone's your ally, they're usually pretty chill for the rest of the game with you and don't usually break that allyship. Now, the problem is, you're their ally. They're going to drag you into wars. It can be really annoying to keep those alliances going, but it's worth doing almost always if you can. Just build a few units, support them sort of where you can, peace out as fast as you can. But yeah, having allies as Silla is really, really valuable, but you can't control that. Now, if you're playing someone like Queen of War, I think Queen of War puts Silla up to be really, really strong. I think without Queen of War, you are playing a much more difficult game. Queen of War lets you support endeavors for free, which is really, really strong. It builds a relationship quite quickly. I think these two are an absolute natural pairing, so if you want something really strong, I'd play these two together, but unfortunately for Silla, I don't think you can reliably get them to pop off as much as you would want, but I think they're really fun. Only as Queen of War could I really recommend them up in A maybe, but I think that's a bit too specific, so I'd say Silla can go comfortably in B tier. And the last of the new civs that have been added to the game is Tonga, and again, easily one of the most fun civs in the entire game. They really have done a fantastic job with all the post-launch civs, to be honest. And keep in mind that they're also free to grab right now, so if you got the game at launch and you're a bit disillusioned with it, go ahead and still pick up the Tides of Power DLC for free. I think it's free till January, I believe. And make your first game back as Tonga, and go ahead and play Blackbeard as well. He's free too. They are one of the most fun civs in the game. They really are, and also extremely powerful. People are saying, and I said Assyria is probably the best Antiquity Age Civ. I stand by that when it comes to sort of warfare and steamrolling people, but setting you up for the rest of the game, the strength they give you in Antiquity as well, Tonga is insane. Tonga is so strong. What does Tonga do? Starts off pretty slow. +1 influence on the palace and city halls and settlements adjacent to coast. Nothing insane there. That's fine. It's a good bit of early influence. That's fine, sure. They cannot use the city-state incorporate action. Great, who cares? Who actually incorporates city-states? It's fine, you can do it if you've got an excess of influence, but I mean, really, it's kind of a non-issue, really, for them. And they get 30% production towards constructing the Humunga Maui. Now, this is the wonder that gives food and culture to all your fishing boats. And you get a cultural attribute point. Now, Tonga loves to play on coast. They love fishing boats. This is very much if you enjoyed playing the Maori in Civ VI. The Tonga are very similar to that. They can get some insane yields just from fishing boats alone, particularly with the, and I haven't got it yet, but you now have the fishing key and you have the harbour unlocked at sailing, which gives production on fishing boats as a warehouse effect. Really, really strong. You can make some insane settlements just on like one-tile islands like this. Tonga says no worries, and they can settle here and make it very, very productive. So good stuff. Pretty solid start overall. But here's where it gets insane. They have the Tahina. It's a unique scout, and it can enter ocean. It doesn't take damage. It doesn't care about deep ocean. There's no sort of rough seas mechanic for these scouts. They cannot disembark in distant lands, so they can only go around the water. That's in distant lands only, so you can still go, disembark on your homeland territory. That's fine, just like a regular scout. But they can still coastal raid discoveries, so, if this was distant lands, they couldn't, go on the land, but if there was a discovery here, they could take that. They could just go up here and get it like here, that's fine. So they're really, really good at getting discoveries, and they can scout the entire map from Antiquity. Really insane, and this is, excluding the fact that you don't even have to get sailing. So usually, a lot of these water discoveries, you'd be blocked from getting them until you got to sailing. Tonga just they get such an early advantage by snatching up all those discoveries. And I would like to point out that the little scout dog is in the boat with him as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, this unit is kind of Tonga's main defining feature, I would say. The fact that they can scout out the entire map from Antiquity is really valuable. The amount of information you get as to where you're going to settle in the next stage, what's going to be, good settle locations, where all the treasure resources are. You see all that from turn 1 in exploration. It's really insane. It can't be understated how valuable all that information is in a game like Civ. The more scouting is so important in the early game to sort of, plot out where you're going to settle. And ultimately, if you have bad settlements, you'll probably have a bad empire. So conversely, having great settlements gives you a great empire, and that's what Tonga gives you. That's what Tonga provides, because ultimately it's a race to get those good spots, and Tonga will win that race every single time. Moving down to their unique unit, they have a unique naval unit. It gets +5 combat strength against fortified districts. So again, Tonga isn't like they're pretty good at war, and boats are really strong because they're a tier 2 unit that you unlock at the very first tech. Like usually you'd have to get to bronze working to get your tier 2 units over here. You can get a tier 2, really fast, powerful, and tough naval unit right from first tech, and it gets +5 combat strength against fortified districts. Now, fortified districts, probably no one has walls by this point if you're fighting that early, but it's still reasonably strong. And you want to be taking cities on the coast anyway for your effect, so there you go. And all the fishing boats. Again, they really love fishing boats, but we'll get to that. They have a unique quarter, because of course they do, because they're a DLC Civ, and unique quarters are fun, so they get one. And what a doozy this unique quarter is. +2 culture for every trade route you have to a city-state. Now keep in mind, this quarter also gives you the effect, it's a bit confusing, maybe seems repetitive, but what it essentially means is that if someone else takes over one of your cities that has a Tofi in it, that their scouts can enter ocean without taking damage. So they kind of get the effect as well. This also means that in the exploration age, your scouts that won't be your unique ones get the same effect too. So it's a bit odd. It's a bit strange that someone gets a really quite powerful effect if they take this over. So make sure the AI doesn't take it over, or if you're in multiplayer, make sure that no one takes your quarter over, because then they get their scouts to have this really powerful effect. But really what we're looking at here is the +2 culture for every trade route you have to a city-state. And we'll get to why this is so strong in their civics, but it is really, really good. You can stack this across multiple cities, so you can aim for 3, 4, 5 of these quarters. That's going to be potentially up to +10 culture for every trade route you have to a city-state, and we'll see just how easy it is to do that as well. So the buildings that make up this quarter is the Langi. It's a culture and food building, +3 culture and +1 food adjacency for resources and wonders. Again, pretty solid, +3 culture. What more can you want? It's fine. And the other one here, +3 happiness and +1 culture adjacency for coast and wonders. So this is going to be your main one in terms of sort of planning. Put these on the coast, basically. So a tile like this, if I could reach it, would be fantastic. This would be a +6 adjacency, so +6 culture, plus the 3 base from the other building. You're looking at a really, really strong cultural tile. And again, that's going to make all of your specialists really insane too. In general, this building is just really great for stacking specialists. Obviously, it's ageless, so you get to keep those effects as well, which is amazing. But it's really easy to get coast adjacency, so fantastic. Overall, really strong so far. Let's keep going. Let's go to their civics. So a pretty standard sort of tree. You get 2 choices to start with. First of all, you get the building up here, which this is the really good one, the culture from coastal terrain adjacency one. And their trade routes can cross ocean. So you can, form distant land trade routes in Antiquity, really, really strong. And this is the kicker here, receive a free trade route from a new city-state when you become their suzerain. So as Tonga, you want to be suzeraining all the city-states you can. Now, this doesn't work like Silla does. It still has to be in trade route range to actually form that trade route. But if you are in trade route range, and you really should try to be, getting this free trade route means your quarter instantly kicks in and you get that +2 culture on every single one of your quarters. It's really, really fantastic. Make sure that you get this civic before you before you finish befriending your first city-state. That free trade route is super valuable, and obviously, in addition, you're getting the resources too, so it's just fantastic. Down to the mastery here, we have +1 influence on monuments adjacent to coast. It's alright. It's very rare for mountains to be adjacent to coast, so you can't really hack, getting the influence and the culture adjacency from the monument, so don't worry about that too much. But here, +1 culture on warehouse buildings, incredible. This is insane. It's going to be a great card to plug in on stuff like turn 1 of exploration and modern, because it kicks off right away. Your warehouse buildings stay with you for the entire game, and you can stack a ton of them. You should probably be buying warehouse buildings in all of your towns. Keep in mind, there's another warehouse building now as well, the harbour, so +1 there. Really, really good. A fantastic tradition. You'll probably have it plugged in for most of the game. Down to the other civic here, where you get your Langi, and +3 combat strength for infantry and naval units when adjacent to coast. So again, makes your boats a little bit stronger and your infantry, but again, fighting isn't that important, but it's a pretty good effect, and you get it for free, so you'll take what you can get. Mastery here, where you get your +1 settlement limit, and a tradition for +10 naval trade route range. So you probably don't really need to keep this plugged in at all times, so what you can do is plug this in right before you befriend a city-state if it's a little bit far away, just to confirm that you're in trade route range. So you can plug it in, suzerain them, get the free trade route, and then plug it out, and it's fine. It's actually reasonably strong for that effect, but I wouldn't keep this plugged in generally. It's not that stunning. And lastly, we have the Carver Ceremony. This gives you +100% influence towards the initiating and progressing the Befriend Independent project if they're in distant lands. Really, really strong. So you're going to get kind of first dibs at a lot of these independent powers in distant lands. In addition to that, you're getting it for really, really cheap. You do not have any shortage of influence. You can get it down to, I think it's around, I want to say 50 influence once you get the diplomatic tree point as well, the second one in the Diplo tree. Really, really strong. This just makes them so cheap to befriend, and no one else is really going to be competing with you except for the distant lands AI. But there's often less of them than on your homelands, so a really, really powerful effect. And down here is where you get your mastery, and another fantastic effect, another great tradition. +1 production on fishing boats in cities. Incredible. It makes our fishing boats so good. If we do the maths here, +1 production from your harbor on fishing boats, +1 production from this tradition, and you can get, God of the Sea for another +1. Your fishing boats, and I'll probably flash up a picture here of one of my cities, but with Humunga Maui, which you also unlock here, your fishing boats become, like, better than some buildings. Like, they're so insane, and you're spamming them everywhere. And they get +2 science on fishing boats on reefs. Now, reefs were recently buffed as well, so reefs now give +1 science as a base. As Tonga, these go up to 3 science. It's ridiculous. Like, everything in Tonga is ridiculous. And this is all ageless, all permanent effects that you get. You just keep these plugged in. Wow, Tonga is really fantastic. I really can't stress enough how good they are. They make coastal empires and fishing boat empires so viable. It's a super viable and I would say top tier playstyle now. Is to just have these ridiculous sort of one tile, don't just settle one tile islands everywhere, but coastal empires are so strong now with the harbour. I think it's one of the best changes they've ever done, to be honest, and the Tonga have benefited from coming out at the same time, obviously, but man, are they strong. I think they are far and away the best culture civ in Antiquity. Because of their quarter, you can easily get up to like 1,000 culture in the Antiquity Age, which is ridiculous. Now, all of this kind of assumes that the city-states aren't getting squashed, so if you again, I'm not really factoring multiplayer too much, but if someone's going around and killing all the city-states, that really hurts Tonga. That really hurts your culture, ceiling, I guess. But look, I think Tonga are the best civ when it comes to... If you don't want to go to war, you don't want to deal with domination as Assyria, Tonga is the play. I think they are really, really insane. I just think they set you up so well. They are such a... It's like the alley-oop of civs, Tonga. They really are fantastic. I'll show some sort of images on screen that of one of my empires I built that sort of showcases just how good they are, but man, are they fantastic. They are the ultimate culture kings in Antiquity, so I know it's getting a bit crowded up here, but I feel very comfortable putting them up in S tier, up with next to Assyria as well. They're just that good, and they have a sick icon as well. And the last civ I want to talk about here in depth is Egypt, who got a massive overhaul. To be honest, they don't really do anything differently to before, but they just do what they should have done and a lot better. So let's get straight into it with some of their changes. Their innate ability they get from turn 1 is Gifts of Osiris, +2 production on improvements and districts on navigable and minor rivers. So this used to be +1 production, and it was only on navigable rivers, and it was only on improvements. So they have massively buffed this. It was really terrible. I mean, it wasn't terrible before, but it was pretty bad. And the fact that it didn't actually, help with districts at all meant you didn't really want to overbuild them. Now you can safely overbuild stuff on these districts and still get this production, which is really, really good. A fantastic change overall. And they get 30% production towards construction of the pyramids. Now, the pyramids are also a really, really solid wonder these days. Quite similar to Egypt, really. They improve both your improvements and your districts. So +1 gold in production on improvements and districts on minor and navigable rivers. Only in that settlement, but still, the pyramids are really, really solid now. So definitely pick them up when you can. And they've made the placement requirements a bit easier as well. So they don't have to be strictly on desert anymore either. Moving now to their unique unit here is the Medjay. It's an infantry unit with no maintenance, and it gains +3 combat strength in friendly territory, doubled when in a settlement that you own. So that's when you're in sort of the city center. That's my understanding. It's okay. It's a really good defensive unit, so it's kind of playing into what Egypt wants to do, which is just kind of chill out and build their wonders and fend off attacks from anyone who does try to come. Terrible on offense. It has no effects, and it's an infantry unit, so you don't really want to be getting them, but they have no maintenance, so in theory you can just kind of pump out a few of these, plot them in cities, and then if someone does decide to attack you,
the Medjay can tank for a very long time while your reinforcements arrive, so they serve their purpose, but overall, it's not really outstanding as a unit. You also get a unique Great Person, which is always fun. They can only be trained in cities with a Necropolis, which is a unique quarter, and you get a random one. I won't touch on these. I don't think these have changed at all since the update. But there's a few in here that are really good that give you essentially like great engineers from Civ VI, where they give you a ton of production towards wonders. I believe there's 3 that give you wonder production, and those are probably far and away the best ones, all things considered. So yeah, they're an okay Great Person, but the randomness of it kind of doesn't help the case of actually building too many of them. But they're fine, they're alright. So the Necropolis is the unique quarter. It's just a little Great Stele, essentially. So it grants 100 gold when any wonder is completed in this settlement. And that obviously gives you your Great Person as well. So again, it's only in that settlement that has the Necropolis if you get the gold when you build the wonder. But yeah, still, it's a pretty good effect early game, but nothing outstanding. As for the 2 buildings, the Mastaba and the Mortuary Temple, Mastaba gives +3 culture and +1 gold adjacency for desert terrain, navigable rivers, and wonders. So pretty solid building all around. Gold and culture, we don't mind that. As for the gold building, +3 gold, +1 happiness adjacency for navigable rivers. So pretty clear where you want to be placing this. You also get +1 culture adjacency for wonders, which is kind of unique to have 2 different yields adjacent. This may be the only building in the game that does this, actually, now that I think about it. But look, pretty decent buildings, but you are quite reliant on navigable rivers as Egypt. Now, they have a really strong spawn bias towards this. Same for desert. We'll get into it, but Egypt is quite reliant on desert to really pop off. They're still good even if you just have minor and navigable rivers around you, but it's where they're on minor navigable rivers in desert, that's when they really, really shine. So very small civics tree here, but each one of these packs a serious punch now. Arrival of Harpy at the top is where you get your Mortuary Temple. They also get the effect that minor rivers do not end unit movement, which is just fine. That's okay. We can move on pretty quickly. +2 food on improvements and districts on navigable and minor rivers. So just a mirror of the production effect, but this is a tradition, so you get to keep this, and it's pretty strong. Food has gotten a lot better since the launch of the game. And again, there's just... It improves the things you want to be focusing on anyway, so because you already get the insane production, you're going to be focusing improvements and districts on those river tiles regardless, so getting the extra food is just compounding effects on things you're already doing, which is really great. Down to Scales of Anubis. This was a really good, probably the only good civic Egypt had before. So you get your Mastaba. The Medjays also generate +1 gold when stationed in a settlement you own. Really minor effect, but hey, there it is. Like, it's something. But Riches of the Duat. +15% production towards constructing wonders. Doubled when constructing in cities in desert terrain. Insanely good. And +2 production on wonders on desert. So basically the whole second half after that first comma there is all brand new. So the doubling effect and the +2 production. This is a really, really strong card now. 30% towards wonders if you're in a city in desert is crazy good. Insanely good. Pair this with, you know, your natural fit here, which is Hatshepsut, who gets +15% production further still if you're on navigable rivers. Really, really good stuff. Egypt is so strong now, and the fact that your wonders now give production for the rest of the game with this tradition plugged in is really, really good. Super strong. Even if you're not in desert, it's +15%, but obviously try to be in desert, obviously. But yeah, super strong tradition. Really good stuff. Their last civic here, +2 gold and +2 culture on the palace and wonders. This is massively improved from what it was. I think before it was just straight up +5 gold on the palace, and that was it. Like, it was completely awful. Anyway, they get the settlement limit here as well, and they get a tradition +1 culture on improvements and districts on navigable minor rivers. I'm getting tired of saying that. Safe to say you get your production as your ability, but then you get these 2 traditions here that give food and culture on those river tiles. So really, really good stuff. This is where you get your pyramids as well. Overall, all 3 of these are now really worth getting. They all have some serious value packed into them. Egypt is so good. I mean, what a change. What a rework. I guess you wouldn't even call it a rework, to be honest. They just massively buffed all their existing bonuses and really doubled down on, you know, what they should be good at, which is building wonders and thriving in the desert. So look, one of the best updates they've ever done in terms of Civ changes. So I don't think Egypt quite belongs up with the big boys up in S, but I think they very comfortably can fit into A tier. I think being the premier wonder spamming Civ now fills a really good niche, and making those wonders productive with their tradition here as well is fantastic. Egypt, really good stuff, really great change. Okay, now I want to quickly touch on the rest of the Civs here, and let's sort of revisit some of those existing placements we have from 1.2.2, which feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, that was basically, I don't know, about 5 or 6 months ago now that patch came out. And the game is almost unrecognizable in terms of balance, realistically, from then to now. So let's take a look. Let's start at the top. Greece, who I put right up the top here in S tier. This is because city-states were completely busted and some of the effects were insane, notably getting a free tech and a free civic every time you befriended any other city-state was ludicrous, and Greece just happened to be really, really good at this. Now, the day came when city-states were nerfed, and unfortunately, I think Greece has got to go down with them. Now, they're still a really, really strong Civ. I think, their hoplites, for example, still get the effects from befriending a bunch of city-states, which is quite good. But they're not what they once were, purely because so much of their power was derived from their sort of city-state befriending aspect. I think they can go into A. I think they're still quite strong. I think the hoplite still carries them in a lot of ways. They do still generate quite a bit of culture, and they have a unique quarter, which gives them a lot of gold from city-states. The point is that even though they lost a lot of power from the city-state effects being bad, they still had a lot of stuff sort of canvassed around that still makes them reasonably strong. So I think they can still go down to A, but definitely their time in the spotlight is past compared to some of these absolute big hitters. Speaking of, I think my opinion of Carthage has gone down a bit as well. Now, they set you up quite well for the rest of the game with a unique quarter, which is insane, getting that +2 resource slots and, +2, 2 unique buildings in every town is really insane. Just put all your towns on the coast and build their buildings. It's crazy good. But they are so weak in Antiquity, and yes, urban centers help a lot for Carthage, but I don't think they're S tier, if we're being honest. They're not actually broken, I would say. They're just really, really, really strong. Their unique cavalry in particular is really powerful, really good at domination. So are their boats. The +1 range on boats is really good, but their yields, they're just so handicapped by their yields. They've just got like a hard ceiling really on what they can get realistically with their one city. So I really enjoy playing Carthage, but unfortunately I can't really justify putting them up in S tier, I would say. Which is funny because I originally had them in A tier and I moved them up to S tier right at the end of the last video. But I think I was right the first time, they can stay in A tier. I think they're just a really, really good Civ that sets you up for the rest of the game after having a reasonably weak Antiquity Age. But I would keep the rest of the 4 up here. Maya got a slight change in the most recent patch. A very, very minor nerf to Maya, who I would say are probably still the best Civ in the game. I think in Antiquity they aren't the best for sure, but their unique quarter is just so ridiculous, which I love. I think it's fantastic. I'm glad they still have like this sort of effect in the game. It's really, really fun to play around with. So I'm glad they're still in there, but they got the lightest of touches in terms of nerfs. I mean, look, they're no Qing China, right? There's no need to nerf them into the ground. They're not that strong, of course. But yeah, they can stay up here. Mississippi as well, I think, can stay up here. They're still really strong. I mean, they received a bit of a nerf, but I think people are massively overreacting about how bad this actually is. So shell-tempered pottery, which was probably one of, if not the best tradition in the game, previously at launch anyway, now only gives the gold adjacency instead of all buildings to just food, gold, and warehouse buildings. But that's still a lot of buildings. I think Mississippi is still insane. Their gold generation is fantastic. Their food generation is amazing. Obviously, the Burning Arrow is a really, really insane unit. So I still think they're really, really strong. I think they just do so many things really well. So yeah, happy to keep Vanessa. I think these can be the big 4 right now. They really are all fantastic Civs in their own right. Coming down to A, I think Han can stay where they are. Their Great Wall is still fantastic. Good for them. They're really solid all-round science Civ, I think. But Moria. What is Moria doing so high up? I think I've come to terms with the fact that Moria isn't probably as good as I thought. I really enjoy getting 2 Pantheons, but the fact that obviously Pantheons get completely lost in exploration, I just can't really justify keeping them up this high. I think the elephants are pretty good. I think they're a strange mix right now where they want to do their religious thing, but they're also meant to be a bit of a warmonger civ, and they want to be happy and build their unique quarter, which gives happiness, but happiness has also kind of deteriorated in my mind a lot as a sort of a useful yield. So I think Moria can sort of go in the C tier. The other thing I didn't realize, and I didn't know this as well until quite recently, is that their unique settler actually costs more than a regular settler. And the only benefit you get is that the city center has +2 happiness, which is really, like, it's a terrible effect, but I thought you were just kind of getting it for free. No, it's a worse settler than the base settler. And of all the units you want to have be worse, the settler is not it. That's a critical unit, obviously. So Moria, I think, unfortunately, I was really, really misjudged their power level near the launch of the game. They can go in C tier. I think they're a really average civ. But they're still better than some of these ones, which we'll talk about. Rome as well, I think they can go down a little bit. I think they're quite good in the fact that they can get culture mid-turn, which has a lot of implications in the modern age, which I don't have enough time to talk about here, but they can 0-turn civics. I think they can go down to B tier. I quite like their tradition still that gives you +5% to specialized towns. Again, you want to be specializing your towns like ASAP in most cases. It's really good with urban centers, really good with someone like Augustus, obviously, but yeah, I don't think Rome is quite as good as some of these other civs up here. Like, they don't compare to Greece, they don't compare to Egypt, not even close. So they go down to B tier, probably just barely, I would say. Axum got some interesting changes. They are probably a little bit stronger than they were, so they get +3 gold on coastal settlements instead of just +2 gold across the board. They also got a slight buff to some of their traditions, some of their effects. They're just a little bit better across the board. Notably, probably their best civic, maybe Please the People, was not changed, which gives you a ton of culture from resources, so that's good. You still have to keep that throughout the game. I think they are pretty strong, and they're, the White, is that what it's called? The unique improvement is really, really strong. You should be spamming those just about everywhere you can. I think the B tier is a very respectable place. Near the top of B tier is a good spot for Axum to be. I think they're teetering on the edge of A, but I just can't quite put them in the same sort of league as Greece or Egypt, for example. And down to the D tier, we have some familiar faces, shall we say, Khmer and Persia. So Khmer, unfortunately, has not received any changes, really, in the past couple patches. I don't know why Firaxis seems to think they're doing all right. They're really struggle street. Even their sort of flagship tradition, the one that gives 100% maintenance towards happiness and food on specialists. If you think that makes them free, it doesn't. It halves the cost because of the way the sort of maths works out. So it makes your specialist cost 1 food and happiness instead of 2 once you plug that in. Even that is just not a very good card. I mean, and that's kind of their big thing, is that they're all about specialists, but no settlement limit in Antiquity is a struggle, and they need something insane to make up for that, and they really do not have it. So the Khmer can safely stay in D tier, unfortunately. They are really, really bad. Persia. Now, they've been renamed as well to Achaemenid Persia, and I was expecting some really big changes as well here. Sort of, if Egypt, Khmer, and Persia had all received some changes, would have been a happy man, but Persia got some stuff changed, but none of it's very good. So their Paradisa used to just give +1 culture and gold. Now it's up to 2 culture and 1 gold, and it gives +5 healing for military units in a settlement with a Paradisa. This is still bad. This is still really quite bad. It's a fine improvement, and the healing is okay, but +5 was such a safe change. Like, they could have made this +20, right? Like, make it something crazy, Why not? Persia needs the help. So I don't know why they played it so safe, but this is a very common thread for civ balancing, except for Egypt. Sometimes it feels like there's different teams, and clearly the Egypt team has hit it out of the park. They've massively overhauled a ton of their stuff, and it's fantastic. The Persia team is really playing it safe on some of these changes. So What else did I get? The Paradisa now gets +1 culture and +1 happiness from adjacent quarters. Previously was just happiness, so again, more culture on the Paradisa, which is good. It's fine. And they're one of their civics, +5 gold, +2 happiness, and 2 culture for every different civ you've captured a settlement from. It used to just be +5 gold, so the happiness and culture is new. It's just not it. This is an effect that goes away at the end of the age as well, so really, really bad stuff. Persia, I don't think I can really justify taking them out of D tier, I'd say. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, are they better than Moria? Are they as good as Moria? Probably. I think the Khmer are really on a tier of their own, I guess. That checks out. So Persia can just barely lift itself up to C tier, but they're still not good. Yeah, disappointing, really. Disappointing changes for the bottom end of town, but you can see it's starting to get pretty top-heavy here. A lot of Antiquity Age Civs are really, really strong, which is good. I mean, the Antiquity Age is far and away the best age, I would say. So yeah, I'm glad they sort of focus a lot of their efforts on this age, because these Civs impact you for the rest of the game, whereas Modern Age Civs impact you for 14 turns or so, right? But yeah, this is the final tier list here, so let me know your thoughts. If there's any picks here you agree or disagree with. I suspect that a lot of people probably want Egypt to be up in S tier, and Mississippi probably further down, but I stand by these calls, so let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. And finally, if you've made it this far, a few special mentions. Firstly, if you haven't heard, I'm taking part in the 2025 Civ Give. This is a yearly event run by the Civ Show that raises money for a children's charity. There'll be a big multiplayer game with a ton of other Civ content creators in December, but I'll put a QR code on screen here, and there's a link in the description if you want to donate. It's a great cause, so give generously if you're able to. And finally, a shout out to our channel members who very generously support myself. That's Chris J, Int Paladin, Shamal TV, Diana, Awesome Daisy, and Chase Bandy. Thank you for all your support. It's very generous and completely unnecessary. But that's all I've got for you today. Don't forget to leave a like and all that good stuff if you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.